the criminal underworld, the mob, New York, La Cosa Nostra, the Dapper Don, the Teflon Don. That's right, we're talking about the Gambino crime family and John Gotti. So, does Gotti paint an accurate portrayal of one of the mob's most infamous bosses, or should we leave the gun and grab the cannoli? Let's talk about it in this review. The film opens with Gotti, played incredibly well by John Travolta, giving a monologue to set up the story. And then from there we are into the credits sequence where a song kicks in. That was a very odd music selection. The opening lines given by Travolta were done so well I was immediately hooked into this story, and then the music for the credits sequence began. Let's just say it really pulled me out of that moment. The music in general for this film really wasn't that great at all. In fact, we'd have certain scenes that are taking place in the 1970s with songs that weren't even recorded yet. In one particular example, there's a street party going on and the cops show up and John Gotti approaches the cops and there's fireworks going off. And this is the 1970s, and then all of a sudden Pitbull's Don't Stop the Party just starts playing out of nowhere. And again, it's just moments like this with the music that kept pulling me out of the scene because the music didn't really fit the time period and wasn't appropriate for what was happening on screen. If you're gonna have a film that takes place within that certain time period, I think it's important that you have some continuity for the actual time period to make sure that the music selections are appropriate to the scenes that you're filming. Now, if you aren't doing that and you're just doing a film that takes place in the 1970s, but you wanna go all creative, super sci-fi crazy with it, you have a 1970s vibe, but then all kinds of futuristic clothing and music and whatever else you wanna put in there, that's fine, do that, go crazy, live your life. But if you're going to do a film that takes place in the 1970s about real life people at real life times with real life moments, I think it's really important to stay true to that with the music selection, the costume design, everything else. In short, please pay attention. The story didn't progress that smoothly either. Because it jumps from time period to time period between decades, it felt a little bit disjointed. This wasn't a huge detraction from my enjoyment of the film. It just happened so quickly and so often that I can see how people might have to kind of regroup and refocus their attention to be like, wait, which decade are we in now? Is this back in the 70s? Is this further along? Is this modern day? You really gotta pay attention to that kind of stuff because again, it's really quick and it just jumps back and forth. That all being said, I did really enjoy the actual story. The story does take a look at the life of John Gotti and his rise to infamy, all the way up until his death. And I'm led to believe that this takes place mostly from his point of view, and it makes no apologies about that either. We take a look at the mafia codes of conduct, how he deals with his family and the family, his dealings with the Justice Department, and his perspective on their unfair dealings. We also get to take a look at the neighborhood's view of John Gotti and how the government was treating him unfairly, painting the government out to be more of the villain than the crime boss Gotti. And in one particular scene, we even get to see his interactions with the neighborhood and how he even helps little old ladies across the street. And again, keeping with that theme of disjointed storytelling because of how it continuously jumps back and forth through time, they also added an element of real life video footage of the real life John Gotti. So as we're going back and forth between the story, there's these clips of the actual John Gotti going in and out of court, etc. And then on top of that, it shows who John Gotti was as a father and as a husband, because we get to see personal moments with him and his wife and how he takes care of her after a tragedy. And we also get to see how he relates to at least one of his sons as he's giving him advice and he's really having an honest heart-to-heart moment with his son. This film dared to tell a lot in a short amount of time. Gotti is playing in your local movie theater right now, and I'm not actually going to recommend a big screen viewing of this film, but I will recommend a viewing once it hits your preferred streaming service for free. If you enjoy the mob movie genre, this film probably won't make your top 5, but it does have enough of the standard tropes that we come to enjoy from these types of films to make it an entertaining mob movie. And if you need just one reason to watch this film, I'm gonna go back to John Travolta's performance because he really brings the sauce in his role as John Gotti. And again, as I stated, the music selections in this film weren't great. They really pulled me out of the moment a bunch of times. And that disjointed storytelling where we're going back and forth, and then real life clips. And then at the very end of the film, we think it's over and there's just a nice emotional hit that we get at the very end of the film. But then John Travolta comes back on as Gotti, just like we see him at the beginning of the film. He is there at the end of the film to give a closing monologue, and it kind of steals and it kind of robs all of the emotional buildup that what we thought the ending was left us with. So because of these issues I had, Gotti is getting 0 high fives from this guy. Gotti is playing at your local movie theater right now.